And this is Dr. Joshua Fredenberg coming to you today. I want to welcome all of you here today as we get ready for this incredible virtual masterclass for professionals that work with first generation students and programs. So we're so excited to be here today. I want to thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to be a part of us today. So I'm excited about what's going to happen and what's going to transpire today. Before we get started, I want to give you an opportunity to learn who I am. My name is Dr. Joshua Fredenberg, and I am a national speaker, author, and president of the Circle of Change Leadership Conference that specializes in leadership, diversity and inclusion, retention, as well as student success. So I'm so excited that you're here to join us today. And the sponsor of this event is the Circle of Change Leadership Conference. This is a conference that we host every year all across the country. And the goal is, number one, to help students discover the leader from within, develop the career and professional skills necessary to attain career leadership success, and the inspiration and the confidence to go out there and make a positive impact in their community, their nation, and their world. And ultimately, due to COVID-19, we had to pivot like everybody else, and we had to move from doing in-person conferences to our national conference virtually this year, November 20th through the 22nd and December 4th through the 6th. Normally our conference is 3 days, but we've been able to extend it 6 days, which provides students more value, more opportunity, more resources, and a greater impactful experience, which I'm truly excited about. In addition to that, the price is cut in half, so it's much more economical as well, and we are going to have a greater reach, and it's going to be amazing. And so if you have any questions or if you're interested in sending your students or as a professional being a part of this virtual transformational experience that will be happening this fall, Skylar and Christina are going to put the link in the chat room, and you can just click on the link to go directly to learn about the conference, as well as we have a database that you can fill out a form, and we'll follow up with you with more information as well. So I'm really excited about this program, super excited that Circle of Change is sponsoring this particular virtual masterclass and all the others. So I'm just thrilled and excited about that. Before we get started, we're going to do a quick poll. And the purpose of this poll is really to know where everybody is at. We had about 1,100 people that registered. And so we just want to just have an idea, where are people coming from? We have 4 questions. Are you from the Northeast? Are you from the Southeast, the Midwest, the Southwest, or all the way on the West Coast, where I'm born and raised in the Bay Area, ultimately went to school in LA. Let's see who's representing. So the biggest audience at this point looks like it is the West Coast. Southeast is close, Midwest is close. Awesome. Okay, so we got a pretty good variety of people that are locked in today. So that is absolutely incredible and awesome. And so the reason I did this poll is that I want you to do one more thing. The last thing I want you to do is I want you to represent. If you could put in the chat room what your name is, what college you represent, and then as you're looking at what people are putting, this is the time to network and to connect. Again, we have, I believe at this moment, we have about 400 to 500 people on here right now. And so this is your moment to network, to connect, and just let us know where you're from. In addition to that, we have 2, I call them our virtual masterclass reporters. We have Christina. She'll be in there the whole time. She'll be answering questions and putting links in there and helping you out. There she goes. We also got Skylar. She's actually a first-generation student, attended the Circle of Change Leadership Conference, a double major, and she's getting ready to go get her master's at UNLV, so she's also going to be there as well. So make sure you give her a shout-out as well. So they'll be working the chat room as well. And so we're excited to have all of you here. And again, network, connect, ask questions. We want to be very engaged, and most importantly, if we can get to your question, we're going to try our best. But without further ado, we're getting ready to do the most important thing, I believe, of the moment, and we're going to introduce our wonderful panelists. Each of these individuals are incredible speakers. They're incredible thought leaders. They do incredible work. They each have something valuable to present to all of us, and I'm so excited to have both of them here today. I know they're going to share some incredible knowledge, and so we're going to get right into it. I'm going to introduce our first one. Our first guest is Ernesto. Ernesto is a national speaker, VP of Partnership Cultivator, one of the leaders of Cool Speak. Ernesto, I introduced you, but introduce yourself and tell us something unique about you.
All right. Well, first and foremost, thanks, Josh, and thank you for everybody, to everybody for being here. My name's Ernesto Mejia Macias. That's how my parents and grandparents pronounce it, say it, and gave me. And I'm the proud product of Mexican immigrant parents from Zacatecas, Mexico. And I think that's one of the things that I'm proudest of because they came to the country to live out that American dream, and I ended up being part of that. So thanks for having me.
Awesome, Ernesto, we're so happy to have you. Give Ernesto a big round of applause and air high five. Awesome. Our next panelist, she's new to our panel, but she's an exceptional speaker and television host. But I'm gonna let her introduce herself. Jessica from Michigan, welcome.
Hey everyone, my name is Jessica Lundy. I am so incredibly excited to be here with you today. I'm originally from Michigan and now I live in Atlanta. I'm a former award-winning TV host and now I am a student motivational speaker, life coach, and author. And this is going to be an amazing experience. I definitely got some gems that I can't wait to share with you today.
Awesome. Give Jessica a round of applause. We give her a big high five in the air. Awesome. So good to have Jessica here today. Our next one is, he's no stranger, Jared Benjamin. He lives 10 minutes away from me. He's an international speaker, CEO of the lead firm, and he has a conference coming up. Jared, let him know about it.
It's indeed a pleasure to be with y'all today. I'm excited to be a part of this opportunity. I'm the CEO of Lead Firm. Me and my partner, Taylor McCain, founded an organization about 4 years ago. We try our best to impact universities across the nation, roughly with 176 universities each academic year, first gen, Greek life, student engagement, and faculty retreats. We're excited to be a part of this opportunity. As always, Josh, I can't wait to get to it and drop some gems, drop some knowledge, drop some wisdom, and most of all, just leave an impact on this with this panel today. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Give Jared a big round of applause. High five in the screen, man. Jared, so excited to have you again. It's going to be fun. Our next panelist, she's new, but she's no stranger to first generation students. She's a seasoned vet, a seasoned professional. We want to welcome Maricel Herrera. It's in your hands, Maricel. Take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be on board and to be invited to this opportunity, and great to see so much a turnout. I am calling in from Arizona, where it's about 115 degrees, so I can handle the heat. But I'm originally from New York City. I grew up in Spanish Harlem, Puerto Rican, Latina, first generation college student. Spent the last 25 years doing this work at universities and currently as a consultant with my own business. I'm a certified coach and an author, and I'm just really excited to be here and to learn from this panel of experts and to learn from the participants as well.
Awesome. Give Maricel a big round of five, high five in the air. So excited to have Maricel here today. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be awesome. And our last panelist, he's no stranger. He's a part of the greatest fraternity in the world, Phi Beta Sigma. Dr. Bates, coming from North Carolina. Introduce yourself, Dr. Bates.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Tierney Bates here, representing North Carolina, but I'm originally from the OHIO 216, Cleveland, Ohio. I serve as Assistant Vice Chancellor at UNC Chapel Hill, and I'm also the CEO of the Bates Group, which is a boutique consulting firm around diversity searches and diversity and training and workshops.
Awesome. Well, we're so happy to have you, Dr. Bates. High five to Dr. Bates. It's going to be good. It's going to be awesome, and we're so excited to have him here today. Again, for those of you that may want to connect with our wonderful panelists, we put their LinkedIn profiles in the chat box, so make sure you connect with them, make sure you talk to them, and all of that wonderful stuff. But without further ado, y'all, we're getting ready to get into this presentation, and I'm going to direct this question at Maricel to begin with. And the first question that I want to ask you is this, Maricel. So as a national speaker, and I'm sure everyone on the panel can understand, when COVID-19 hit, it changed everything. From individuals that were used to speaking in person for more than 10 plus years, all of a sudden that was done, and we all had to pivot and begin to embrace and begin to move to a virtual environment as a speaker. And there are a lot of adjustments that all of us are still making to this point. But I want to really focus on first generation students and academic success. what I want to know is what specific things can professionals do to ensure that their first generation students are still able to obtain academic success in a virtual environment? So we're going to start with you, Maricel, and then everyone else can begin to chime in.
I think it's a question that's top of mind for all of us. And when I think about academic success, I simply can't help but think about holistic success, because as we all know who work in universities, sometimes it's the academic rigor and often it's the non-cognitive stuff. It's the other things that impact the student's life. And right now, we are all getting an opportunity to exercise resilience. So when I thought about this question, I thought about one of the very first things that we need to do as educators and higher education administrators is to really come from a place of authentic care, because a virtual environment is going to require us to have really authentic relationships, caring relationships that have rapport, that have trust, so that student can open up to what's going on in their life in this unprecedented situation, so that they can have a safe space. We know students often impression manage. First generation students are no different. And so that they can have a safe space to open up to what's going on, what is causing a barrier for them, what are the situations that they find themselves in, whether navigating learning from home, whether it's technology, whether it's financial, and the other things that sometimes are facilitated in person in an on-campus experience, but that can be more difficult. So I think coming from a place of authentic care is going to be critically important to foster their sense of belonging, which we know is critical for first-gen students. I also think it's going to be really important for us to keep students' why before them. I'm a coach, and so I'm always coming from that place. You know, there's a saying, once you know your why, your how becomes manageable. And I think that this pandemic and all the things that happened this summer can really have a student lose momentum, focus, a sense of connectivity to their goals. And so really keeping a student's why before them. Why are they doing this? Why are they making this sacrifice? We know that people who survive hard experiences keep the big picture in mind. So I think that's going to be really important. I also think it's going to be important for us to proactively name, normalize, and demystify any of the concerns students might be having, assumptions that they're having, gaps related to being in a virtual environment, or at least a hybrid environment, whether that's assumptions we have about their technology competencies, whether they don't have a laptop or a good webcam, whether it's how they're going to access services, or their assumption that maybe only online services will be available, when in fact there'll probably be a lot of in-person services still available at your institution. So I think it's going to be really important to share resources, but really break them down and make clear all of these things have changed, but our support for you has not changed. Two things I want to say in closing, and there's just so many different things that we can say about this topic, is that I think ownership and intentionality is going to be really important for our students' success this year. Self-ownership and a high level of intentionality and strategy about going about their business. We are not going to be able to give, if you will, resources in the same way that we might have prior to this pandemic. And so we're really going to have to increase students' agency, their sense of efficacy, their ability to believe in themselves and learn how to navigate. We're going to have to do that through role modeling. We're going to have to spend more time in kind of deconstructing complex systems for them. We're going to have to enjoin them and get them to brainstorm. Fact of the matter is, first-gen students many times have had to overcome many things that seemed impossible to get to where they are. And so we can draw out those strengths, and we can draw out that fuel that has them. If there's any way for us to include their families, I think families get discounted in this process. And more than ever, if a student is navigating school from home and not from the residential experience, how can we empower the families to support them?
That's a great point. That's a really good point. Dr. Bates, what do you think?
As my sister has already said, I think she hit on a lot of great things. I want to just echo one thing that really kind of hit me, because it's something we've been doing in my space, is working with parents. One of the biggest things that I think she mentioned that is key is if we're working with TRIO and first generation students, we should also be reaching out to their parents. So the same information that we're sharing with our students is the same information specifically in this virtual space that we need to be sharing with the parents. Now, we all know that parents are working, some are trying to find a job because of this pandemic, but this is a unique opportunity to find, create, and develop parent TRIO or parent first generation groups for our individual offices in our individual institutions and go the extra mile with them. Because you got to think about it, a lot of our parents are first generation as well, parents of first generation students understanding how to navigate what we call higher education. And so one of the biggest things we can do is help walk them along with that. A second thing is we have to also think about this, food insecurities. For a lot of our students, being on campus was going to be a way for them to live, to survive. Now, if they're not able to go back to campus, or if they do come back to campus, and even being on campus, there's a situation where they might be impacted by this pandemic, and there's food securities because they were already not, eating the great food we have in some of these great facilities on our campuses. How do we develop opportunities to partner in our communities with Angel? Some of you guys might have heard of Angel Foods, where these organizations in different communities give out a week's worth of supply of foods that students and individuals can come and get and use. So again, we're stocking it up on our campus, but how can we work and get to work with other communities to make sure if they're not on campus, that we can help them where they are coming from? And I think the last thing I just wanted to point out is just, we're in a unique opportunity to build new partnerships and resources. I say that because if you look at Claflin University, they're building a new partnership with Zoom. One of the things we're having a dialogue, if you're in North Carolina area, is with Lenovo. So I know I got North Carolina A&T on here today, St. Augustine, NCCU. If you're not talking to Lenovo to help build your infrastructure around borrowing laptops, borrowing certain technology to help your students, because again, some students won't have the stuff they need to be able to take these online classes. That is a uniqueness that you need to be reaching out to Lenovo, Apple, different organizations in your own community where your school is located at to partner. Lenovo is willing to give us so many laptops for students. So again, take that advantage of that. And I think the old thing I wanted to say is, like my sister said, is students don't know if you care until you show authenticity and show that you care. So what you need to do is old school style, pick up the phone, call your student and check on them. Ain't nothing wrong with a 5 or 10 minute call where you say, how are you truly doing?
Hey, I love that. I love that, Dr. Bates, and I love that, Maricel. I love the authentic care, and I love the parents. Man, I think that's a critical piece, I think, as well. Ernesto, you work with high school students as well. What do you see? You work a lot with students that are making the transition from high school to college. What are you seeing, and what do you think some of these professionals can do?
So one of the things, again, just to echo the last two great points about parents, don't forget, whenever possible, to deliver to our parents in their native language. If you want that first-gen Latinx student to get a little bit more pressure, encouragement, support from home, se les tiene que hablar en español to their parents. You need to talk to their parents in Spanish to make them feel welcomed, appreciated, and to allow them to see the skill set that their parents instilled in them to get them to where they're at, okay? Back to your question, Josh, I think the part that we need to remember is these students are coming in right now a little bit, how do I say this nicely, salty. No prom, no homecoming, no graduation, no sports, and then on top of it, okay, well, when college comes around, it'll all be different. That was the original plan. As of yesterday that I looked, it's about 13% of colleges and universities that are going straight online. If you ask me, by day one, when classes start, that number is going to double, because colleges are noticing and realizing the dangers and the challenges that there are to go back live. But to the original question too, about what professionals can do, and I don't want us to forget about this, we need to remind not just our parents, but our students of their safety. It's not just I'm learning virtual, it sucks. Oh, by the way, there's this pandemic happening, by the way. Don't mind that part. That's something that they need to know about, and especially parents. If I'm sending you my kid, I need to know that there are some precautions in place. I need to know what's going to happen if, I know that there's some parents, I'm part of some groups because I have a college sophomore that are asking, are you saying that if my student doesn't go back to your campus, you're going to take their scholarship away from them? These are questions that you need to ask in advance and not find out after the matter. And we need to make sure that our parents are fully prepared to understand. I love social media, and it's a way to help, but it's also a way to just, rain on everybody's parade. Just stay at your local community college and don't go back to campus. Well, that doesn't necessarily work for everybody, and the savings might not be what you think they are, and you might already be locked into an apartment or something else. So you need to look at all the external factors that play a role in that. But when we're going back to, and I don't want to take up too much time because there's a lot of brain power on here, when it comes back to our professionals, that sense of safety, but also I would focus a lot of your time and energy not on how were you as a student in high school, what are your biggest challenges here coming to our campus, if not building a relationship. If I feel like I have a relationship with you, I'm probably going to be more open and straightforward and let you know what, I'm slipping in math. You know what, I need some help in English. So use the resources that you have, like the Khan Academies. And when you're talking about ownership, here's the one thing that we need to remember. If these students make it out of this freshman year this way, they are going to be well prepared to take over the world and then some. But if we need to teach them and coach them a little bit more on how to be responsible, how to follow through, even things that we use in our own work, like a Slack or an Asana to get team projects done, encourage that, because if they can learn that their freshman year, these are tools that they're going to use throughout their life in the workforce. So those are just a few ideas, Josh.
Hey, I think that's so good, Ernesto. I completely agree, man. I told a group of students, they're getting ready to be history makers. There's never been students, particularly freshmen, that have faced this situation from graduation to the first year of school. And so I completely agree with that. As they navigate through this, they'll be able to get through anything, I believe, in life. Also, I love the relationship building and the family and the community building. I think that's so vitally important and so important. I love that. Jessica and Jared, what do y'all have to say about this question?
Wow. I mean, so much has already been shared that was extremely, extremely powerful. Two main words come to mind for me. That's connection and partnership. So I totally agree with everyone saying, that's why a lot of people love TRIO and they love first generation programs, because they're able to get that connection. They're able to get that support. They're able to get that love that they need for them to be successful. So I think that's important, and not just assuming that because someone's been on Zoom all day because of classes doesn't mean that they don't want to do a Zoom office hours or setting up a chat so that students can connect, especially like everyone was saying, if we're not going to be on campus, students still need to be able to connect. They still need to go and be a part of these clubs and organizations and Greek life and culture. And so we have to set up different virtual classrooms per se for them to be able to still connect and to meet new people. So they're not just meeting people on social media, but they're having those authentic connections. Might be a breakout room, setting up a certain amount of breakout rooms on a Zoom call would be helpful as well. And then partnerships. I was talking to a university in Texas and they were telling me that they literally called every student that is at their school. They said it took forever, right? But it was totally worth it. And they said they were shocked. Now, granted, every student did not answer their phone, but the ones that did said that they loved the support. They loved the encouragement. They loved to know that they were thought about, because oftentimes, you can assume different things on how students are feeling, but to pick up the phone, not an email, not a text, but actually pick up the phone and say, hey, how are you doing? How are your classes going? How are you feeling about going back to school? And that can change their life. That can allow them to stay enrolled, especially with so much uncertainty. Like Ernesto was saying, is that there's a lot of articles going around about people just going to community college, but that might not work for everyone. If they're already at the university, we want them to stay at the university. So if we can encourage them to stay engaged, stay involved, join virtual clubs, virtual organizations, and show up to as many activities as possible will allow them to stay connected. And involving the parents is priceless. And not just the parents, but the whole family, because we want their younger siblings to go to the same university as well.
I love the example of picking up the phone and making a phone call. Kind of remind me of church, old school church, get on the phone and make a call. How the members doing? So I love it. I think that's so critical when we create community. And I think it shows that you care. If you're going to get on the phone and call someone, that's a really big deal, I believe. Just when I received that, I'm sure others feel the same way with so many things going on. Jared, we had a question that was brought to me, and I think it really relates to this question as far as time management and what tools can students use to increase their time management, in addition to what else you were going to talk to. So, Jared, take it away.
So first, I'd like to say Brother Ernesto had a great point when he's talked about relationship. I think in establishing a relationship is twofold: student-fold, administrator-staff-fold. We have to ensure that we're both invested in establishing true relationships. And I always I also teach as an adjunct at FIU, and I tell my students sometimes the difference between a B- and a B at times can be relationship and where you're positioned in class. And they're like, "Oh, what do you mean?" I'm like, if I don't know you, I don't know how to exercise empathy if I have no knowledge of who you are. So ensuring that you establish a relationship and showing students what relationship looks like, because everyone doesn't have a relationship in their home, a relationship to see in their home, and a relationship to model in their home. So, you have to realize that you're not just inviting students to a campus, you're inviting them to a community. And we know when you invite someone into a community, you have to have community style love, where you're actually embracing them, training them, and loving on them. And loving on them is going to show them some skills that they may not have the privilege of learning while they were home. As it pertains to how this looks now, I love the survival thought that in the event you make it through this, you will make it through life. You will be able to enter the workforce. But I also say, I honestly enjoy hearing students major in STEM majors, but also I tell them liberal arts majors are still relevant and still needed. And in saying that, we have to ensure that we shape students to enter the workforce in what I call pandemic-proof careers. Because just because COVID-19 happened this year, we gotta be prepared and say, we don't need to let history replay itself and say, hey, this may not happen again. I'm sure after we survive 1918 through 1920, we didn't revisit thinking we would be wearing masks as a long-term solution. So now how do you have discussions about pandemic-proof careers, no matter what your discipline or your major is? And as it pertains to accountability and time management, I love it. I think the biggest solution for accountability is through relationship. How are you holding someone accountable? And let's go beyond advisement visits. Let's go beyond advisement appointments and say, I tell folks I would love for Apple devices, because I have more of an Apple-centric house. I would love to say that these are the things that keep me accountable via schedule. But sometimes, to be quite honest with you, I got to go old school and get a legal pad, write everything I need to do down and check it off one at a time. I got so discouraged one time, I reached out to my boss and said, it's so hard working on projects without human interaction. She said, Jerry, do me a favor. Do everything easy first so you accomplished something at the beginning of the day, and put the hard task on the back end. And now you got motivation to finish them. And I'm just crossing them out through a legal pad. So I'm saying this to say, it doesn't have to be a complex solution. Just meet them where they're at and do what works for them. We don't have to make it super elite. Sometimes, write it down, check it off. And if you get discouraged, here's a way to reach me on Microsoft Teams. Shoot me a note. I'll make myself available, not just from 9 to 5, because that's not realistic at this point. 9 to 5, Joe may be babysitting his baby sister because his mom has to go to work now. So what you may have to say is, how can I make my hours a little non-traditional? Maybe I need to work 7 to 3, or maybe I need to work 12 to 3, 4-hour break, 5 to 9, and make myself available and reachable when Joe moms come home and he gets to tag out and say, now I need to reach out and reach out to my trio director or success coach or academic advisor so I can understand what does that look like. Meet them where they're at. And also the last thing I would say, Josh, is don't be afraid of social media. I know it's a little aggravating and frustrating, especially for me, who's on the higher end of a millennial. Some of the new platforms that come out, they come out quicker than I can learn the old platform. But guess what? I'm investing in learning because I'm realizing that's where I reach a lot of students. In this consulting work in higher ed, I even had to figure out TikTok, learn me a quick dance so they can see that I was reachable. But guess what I did on TikTok? I explained to them, this is how you reach your parents. This is how you tell them you need their social security number so that you can fill out your financial aid. Because as a first-gen student, they may not understand why you're asking for their tax documents or their social security number. And what was comical on TikTok, it broke a learning curve, and it ensured that students filled out their FAFSA on time.
So there's so many things that you dropped. It was so incredible. One of the things I want to integrate to this conversation is, in my undergrad, I was a traditional student at Long Beach State University, and then got my master's at Biola. But for my doctoral, I was a virtual doctoral student at Nova Southeastern. And one of the things that I identified really quickly is there's a difference between a traditional student and a virtual student. And one of the things they talk about in studies when they deal with relationship building is they talk about it takes many more connections virtually in order to have the same face-to-face conversation. And I think that relationship building is so critical, that community is so critical. And to be honest, if I didn't learn how to navigate from building community from a traditional sense to a virtual sense, I don't know if I'd have my doctoral degree today. And so what I want to ask the panel as a follow-up question of what we've been talking about, how do professionals build and teach students to build quality relationships virtually?
Well, I'll jump in real quick. One of the biggest things what people have to realize is even though we're going to be virtual for a lot of institutions in the fall, we are still in what I call ERI, emergency remote instruction. Because one of the things we still haven't put on is that most faculty are still not prepared, still not up to speed, and still don't know what an instructional design looks like to be offer virtual classes, right? As we move forward, even with our virtual programs that we're trying to guess and play and put together for our students for the fall, it's still emergency remote instruction because we don't know or we have not designed well enough at most institutions to be in the virtual space. So Josh, to speak to your experience as well, my doctoral program was hybrid. So half online, half in person as I move forward. I realized what they built out for the online piece was multiple interactions pieces when you're week with your classmates, but they also did the typical things you would do in person. That is one, checking in with your faculty, checking in with your classmates, the buddy system where you'd have to have a buddy in your doctoral program and making sure that you're checking in with them as far as that is concerned. And then also making sure that the coursework that is being done is also easy for people to navigate, but also perform at its highest level to be able to deliver and to able to make sure you maintain and do the work as far as that is concerned. I would argue most of the schools and individuals on this call, we are still figuring that out. There is not, if somebody's got it down besides University of Phoenix and maybe Strayer or some of those for-profit schools, but if you're in a non-profit school realm, we are still figuring out. Now, some schools have a strong, what I call distance learning program, but guess what? They haven't did it for the graduate school or for specific programs. They haven't did it for the professor who's been teaching biology or who's been teaching, some science class for the last 30 years, and they're stuck in their own ways. So I would say the best thing we can do is when you're looking at your provost and you're talking to your academic affairs partners, especially for us that are in TRIO or student affairs, is truly building out instructional design and being intentional with student feedback and student assessment. And I would even argue having some student run programs or ideas to see how well they even do to make sure we're meeting our students where they're at.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up Tierney on that because sometimes I feel like we overcomplicate things. And by that, what I mean is we have administrators that have been working in higher ed for 30 years trying to figure out how our teens are thinking. They don't even relate. And then you say TikTok and they think we're still talking about the candy. And no, those are Tic Tacs, okay? So, just making sure that we poll that audience. Ask the students, what can we do? I like to keep things very simple at times. And I'll point you to one of the best TED presentations out there that's always getting a lot of views. Sean Akers' Happiness Advantage. What's it built upon? Relationships. And those students that build relationships with other students tend to get noticed if they miss a class, tend to get noticed if they don't register, if they don't come on to a live, if they don't participate in a Zoom call. And that's something that we need to do, and we can ask the students how to do so and allow them to take ownership. Because if you're asking me and my cohort, so to speak, to come up with the best concept, best idea as to how we can stay connected and communicate, guess what? I'm probably going to see it through a little bit more because I came up with the idea. I have to have some ownership behind it. So I feel a little bit more energy and a little bit more enthusiasm behind the concept because I want to see it through and I want to prove to everybody I came up with an idea, I'm going to see it through, and I'm going to show you that it works. But making sure that we check in with one another, and I had written this down in my notes, from day one, have them connect where they live on social media. make sure for those that are comfortable, and you know, there's going to be the Finsta, you know, the real one, you know, they let them pick which one they want to share, because you're going to see one, but they're going to see another one. But make sure that they're connecting, because if I can't come hang out with you and I can't come see you, how am I going to see you then? Social media. And guess what? Your brand is being built and shared as you're putting out there on social media, and they can help each other out. So I just wanted to throw that out there real quick.
I think that was really good what you said in regards to making sure that, you know, that we reach them where they're at. I even like to go into talking about even with programming. Sometimes because of Wi-Fi access and a variety of things, we know that everybody's on IG, we know that everybody's on TikTok, Snapchat, or even Facebook. And sometimes I think doing programming that way can be effective as well. Jared, I saw a question that came up in the chat room, and I think you'll be able to address this. Just because, as many of those who are in South Florida know, we're in the midst of a potential, not a tropical storm. Jared, how do you deal with COVID-19 in regards to first generation students? What can professionals do to prepare themselves for that challenge?
Well, first we have to talk. I like to talk about the behavioral health component. To be quite honest, there's a lot of anxiety, or even there's even depression that kind of saturates a student when they're used to human interaction. They're used to, some of them are extroverts, some of them rely on peers to actually hold them accountable, or rely on peers just to have genuine conversations, or those moments of vulnerability may change the trajectory of student success. So how do we supplement that interaction and still get the same results of student success or student achievement? The first thing I would say is you have to be willing to be vulnerable as well. I live in Miami now, but I'm from a small town called Natchitoches, Louisiana. Northwestern State University is probably the biggest populace of our whole town, to be quite honest. And so I always say every graduating class reduces our population. And so with that being said, there was a lot of cultural barriers that I had to overcome leaving a small town. And a lot of cultural barriers, I didn't even understand gender identity, to be quite honest, growing up in a very Christian structured country town. I just got to be honest. I'm a preacher's kid. I went into higher ed, very, very ignorant to gender identity, very, very ignorant to certain things about higher ed that would make me an effective practitioner. So when I shared that vulnerability and how I allowed myself to be educated through that vulnerability, what I did is I showed students in the first gen community where cancel culture is dominant at the moment, that sometimes we may have to postpone versus cancel so that we can be educated. You know, and don't get it wrong, there's some areas where I 1000% agree cancellation is effective and needed at the very moment. However, in some areas where it's not needed, I say we need to enhance those cultures and use them with the peer development. When we talked about student-ran programming, I don't want to even just box it into student activity boards. Or I believe peer is assigning a student that has success that you've watched grown through relationship and allowing them to almost adopt a freshman and make that a part of their collegiate experience. You know, and how I've done that at previous institutions and even in a volunteer capacity here at Student Affairs is I say, you know, make it your mission when you're the SGA president to identify a freshman that you know you could groom to be the leader that you want to be and the leader you are. And, you know, and then he will in turn, or she will in turn do the same thing. And now we start a cycle of success versus a cycle of obstacles. I believe obstacle preventive interaction, it can be change agents so that we now champion not just our academic setting now in COVID-19, but also post-COVID-19. So examine the behavioral health components, be available, be vulnerable, find who can support you if it's outside of your expertise. There's nothing wrong with not knowing, but there is something wrong with not having resources to send them to. And, you know, and then lastly, assign peer-to-peer contacts so that those peers can be impact and change agents to our younger generation of college students.
That's a great point, Jared. I totally love what you said. Totally agree with what you're saying. So many jewels, and a lot of people in the chat room were talking about cancel versus postpone. I think that was a really powerful point as well that I think a lot of people resonated with as well. I'm going to move over to the next question, and I'm going to target this towards Jessica and Maricel. And this is a question I want to ask, because I think I actually got an email before this actually began, and there was a professional that literally emailed me literally 3 or 4 days beforehand, and she had a student that all of a sudden, since everything went virtual and since there's been so many transitions because of COVID-19, literally has not been motivated, has not been engaged, and just really stopped responding altogether. And Jessica and Maricel, I want to ask you all this question. What are some things that professionals can do to motivate, to engage, or even to help them still develop the skills necessary outside the classroom that they would develop in the classroom? Because as anyone in higher ed understands, the outside the classroom experiences are just as important as the in-class experience. And so how do we address this motivation? How do we address this engagement? How do we develop the leadership skills that they're going to need to attain career leadership success in the midst of all the challenges that are going on? So Jessica or Maricel, whoever wants to go first, please share your insight in regards to this question.
Yeah, I'll definitely chime in. I mean, I talk a lot on student success and keeping students motivated and encouraged. Like we were saying earlier, I think the best thing is to, when you're checking in with the students, to ask them what they want. I think long gone are the days where we can just give students what we think they want, but actually ask them, what does support look like to you? How would you like to engage? Like, I understand that things have changed, but what is the best way that I can serve you? I think having those specific questions are important. I think also a lot of times we neglect YouTube. YouTube is such a powerful platform with so many different motivational videos and encouragement. And let's just say from Motivation Monday, you sent out videos to all of your students and just like, here's a bit of motivation, here's some encouragement, here's some resources. Like, I heard this song, it was very uplifting, it made me think about you. Little stuff like that will keep them encouraged. I mean, I'm a huge advocate for affirmations and having positivity all around me, and listening to affirmations and listening to that positivity, and it will seep into your mind. So I think providing them with those additional resources is going to be helpful. I think having additional outside resources are going to help as well, because sometimes students are so comfortable with you, so comfortable with your energy, that sometimes you need to bring in outside energy that'll kind of ignite things to give them that boost they need to be successful. And I think also being cautious of your energy, right? Sometimes you're tired and you're exhausted and you've been working hard, and then you're met with maybe a level 5 energy. They might need a 7 or an 8, right? With everything going on with COVID, they need that energy, they need that support, they need that love more than ever before. So I think making sure that your energy, even though I know it's challenging for you as well, because you're still a person going through this pandemic. So I think you have to, as a higher ed professional, build up your confidence, build up your energy, build up your tank, right? So that you can fill your students up with what they need. So I think that's important. One, on the self-care side, taking care of yourself so that you can be full. And then also checking in with them and say, what does accountability look like for you? Would you like me to check in with you on Instagram? Would you like me to send you a DM? Would you like, meeting them where they are? And like a lot of people said, is that peer-to-peer responsibility. Something I like to do is always create accountability partners, have them check in on Mondays or have them check in on Fridays. And that's something they can look forward to, especially if they're not getting those typical connections of, interacting with someone on campus. If they know every Monday or every Friday that they're going to connect with another student, that could change their life. That could keep them motivated and encouraged.
Yeah, I would jump into that, and I would just add to that. One of the things that I've been able to do in my career in higher education was I was the founding director of a peer coaching center at ASU. This is the largest peer coaching center in the nation, and we, when I departed, we had already met with over 100,000 coaching appointments, and so we used a peer-to-peer model, and it's absolutely phenomenal what students will share with each other. One caveat to that, though, is I think oftentimes we use peers and we don't train them appropriately. So I believe really well-trained, resource-rich peers are critically important because while they may be able to do the social piece just from their own experience, navigating university or college is really complex, and you have to make sure that they are prepared to deal with whatever they're faced. As we know, students share much more openly with each other, and so you want to put your peer, whether they're coaches or ambassadors or mentors, in a position where they are able to succeed, to be well themselves, in service to others. I think the other thing that helps with motivation is knowing yourself. I believe self-awareness is one of the greatest keys to success in life and in college. And so the use of self-assessments, people love learning about themselves. So whether you're using StrengthsFinder or via character strengths or other indices, there's resilience indices, there's all kinds of stuff from the coaching and positive psychology fields that can really help a student get a sense of who they are, what they bring to the world, their value, the contribution that they make, and that can help them align themselves in terms of their major and their activities and their student engagement to those things as well. And then the third thing I would say regarding motivation, and for first generation students, you know, part of many of their realities is that they've had to do it themselves. They've had to work really hard. They've been often in a survival mentality versus a thriving mentality. And those are two different gears. And so I think it's going to be really important for us to message to students that, you know what, the grind is important, but pausing and celebrating and savoring what you've done and really, really taking in what you've done is so important, because a lot of first-gen students burn out with the grind and with the overcoming and the adversity, and they don't tend to the savoring of what goals that they've achieved, celebrating what they've achieved. That's not just important because it feels good. That's important from a scientific standpoint, because when you cultivate positive emotion like happiness, like gratitude, like joy, like pride, those things help you become more resilient. They serve as shock absorbers to students when more adverse situations. And I got to tell you, I'm just being real, that as a Latina first-gen kid from the housing projects in New York, I didn't think joy was an option. I thought hard work and surviving was an option and just getting it done. And so I had to teach myself on how to cultivate joy, cultivate positive emotion, so they could strengthen me and make me more resilient towards achieving my goals.
I totally, absolutely agree with you, and I'm going to let Ernesto and them and Jared and Dr. Bates go. But I think that self-awareness piece is so critical. I know it was said earlier, if you know the why, the how will figure it out. And one of the things I think from leadership development to success in life, I think it always begins. I call it the seeds of greatness. And what do you possess on the inside, such as your strengths and your personality type, even your story, even your values. We have so much on the inside, and then out of that, I encourage students to create what I call a vision grounded in purpose, so a picture image of your future with a set of reasons why. And I found in my life, and I found a lot of other successful people's lives, that when you can create something that's out of who you authentically are, and you have a why behind it, it does incredible things as far as resilience, as far as success as well. But I want to let Ernesto, Jared, and Dr. Bates chime in on this question, because each of you speaks on campuses, speaks to students as well. What are some things that can be done to engage, to motivate, as well as develop leaders, as well as what has already been said wonderfully by Jessica and Maricel?
Sure. Thanks, Josh. And thank you, ladies. That was wonderful insight and quick ideas as you were talking. So one of my pet peeves of not participating, but coming to, master classes, webinars, sessions, is a lot of people talk, but they don't necessarily give you actual tools to implement. And I try to pride myself in doing so every day. So let me throw some of them out there for you. Instead of our first generation students coming in with a deficit model of, well, my parents didn't go to college, well, I didn't know. Let's sit down and do a family interview of just how resilient, how amazing your family is, and how they equipped you to get to the point that you're at right now in life, how they equipped you to get this scholarship, to get to college, to achieve something that they didn't necessarily think that they could achieve themselves, and maybe they didn't because they put their life on hold, so that they see what they're capable of. That's one. Two, a lot of the times we're going through college, getting an education, and my hermana Maricel touched upon this, and I saw Wenatchee Valley's on here. Shout out to them, their camp program. One of the things that is requested out of all of our programming every single time is, can you do the why? It's very simple, and here's how I'm going to suggest you do it. Just ask them why 3 or 4 times. Why do you want an education? Oh, I want to get a nice car. Okay, well, why do you want a nice car? Oh, well, I want to be able to drive comfortably. Okay, why do you want to be able to drive comfortably? And then you get to the core of it. I don't want to struggle and not have transportation like my parents and I did for my entire life. There's a big difference between that and, oh, I want a nice car. So boil it down, ask them why 3 or 4 times. And then the last thing that I'm going to suggest is meet them where they're at in terms of apps, in terms of resources that they're going to be on this. You know, they're averaging double digits a day on these devices in the most part. So I'm going to open mine up just to be honest and be, you know, transparent. MoodPath is one of the apps that I use. Mood Meter is another app that I use. Simple Habit is another app that I use. Happify is another app that I use. All of these apps are going to help you, and I'll type them into the chat here so that you have them. But I want to make sure that we're empowering our students and we're changing the way they're looking and viewing at life. Not just the negatives, but you know what, now I need to believe, instead of just using the same old, well, I'm not good at math. I want them to be able to say eventually, you know what, I'm actually a scholar. You know what, I'm going to be the one, not one. I'm going to be the one. Change their mentalities and how they approach things.
I love it. Jared and Dr. Bates, great points, great points.
Thinking something else that I think we really want to consider when we're empowering our students, or just thinking through how we reach our students. I want people to know that every first-gen student isn't a traditional student. Some of our first-gen, I was a first-gen student, but I was also a veteran. I went to the military first. Then I came. I already had a child when I was a college student. So there was a level of maturity, but there was a level of unknown as well. So, you know, how do you reach those students who may be putting in for their GIB benefits and they're living off of that housing stipend, and now that housing stipend is late? How do we improve our efficiency so that they don't get discouraged? And so I would also say that, you know, the services that you provide have to be at a level that everybody's not 18, everybody's not 19, everybody's not 20. Some people are 27, 32, and they don't have the time or the capacity to have repeat visits when we may not be as efficient as we would like to be. And during this time, efficiency is going to be challenging, but we have to be creative with our efficiency, because that one thing can turn someone off. Because if I haven't had a degree all the way 35, I can always give up and say, I ain't had it this long, why I need it now? You know, how can we keep them motivated? So I would share to say motivation has to remind them why they came. And speak to our students that do have children and say, you're a sterling example. Nothing was more motivating than me when I got off of that graduation stage and my daughter ran to me like, is this my degree too? I'm like, it's our degree, let's go. When I got my next one, she was like, Dad, is this mine too? Baby, this one yours too, let's go. You know, I'm working on my PhD and I'm frustrated working on it, but guess what? My baby girl saying, when is graduation? And I'm thinking like, you know what, I got to do it for her. So you got to find those motivating factors. Also, I don't want to leave non-traditional students out the loop. I want to ensure that we reach those non-traditional, because they are first gen. It's just they don't look like the normal model of first gen, but there's nothing abnormal about their efforts. So ensure that we're reaching them. And programmatic thrust for them, I would tell you, is efficiency. Ensure that we're efficient in what we're providing, we're thorough in what we're answering. And unfortunately, something like an answer isn't efficient when someone's already an adult. They can read through you kind of giving them I call them the diversion answer, where you're like, this is how you do it. You know that ain't it. They're going to go to that office and come back, but this person is going to come back frustrated, discouraged, and may not register for his next set of classes because now he wasn't given a level of efficiency. So I encourage us to increase efficiency and own that efficiency and use lesson learned. Don't be afraid of assessment. Somebody in the chat said, how do we know what programming to start with? We can ask. We can assess our students, and guess what? They're not going to always put the assessment where they already got to do an assignment. I've been putting assessments in Canvas as a 5-question quiz. You know, speak to your academic side. Make it worth a point. Could you be encouraging and put this assessment in your syllabus at the beginning of the semester? Because these are emergency times. And I'm hoping that you can could you give them a point for this assessment? So putting it in the assignment makes them check, no, I don't want to be reached on IG by nobody who my teacher. I don't want to be reached on Facebook. But you know what? I just started a LinkedIn page, and I would like some pointers on how to establish my LinkedIn and a stronger presence. You'd be surprised at the response you may get.
That's great.
That is awesome.
Dr. Bates, what you got?
Sure. I don't even know if I got anything. They hit on a lot, but I would just say this. Everybody on this call is special. And when I say special, we all have our unique value proposition. So do our students. They just sometimes take longer to find out what that is, need that extra push, or it one day becomes a light bulb of what they fall into that is they're passionate about. So you have to teach each one of them that you have a UVP, unique value proposition. Only thing I could probably add to this is around career. And when I say that, it's for the simple fact, like Ernesto said, why are you here? I want to get a better car. Oh, you start breaking down like, well, are you here to support family? Are you here to make a better life for yourself? But how do you take what you're learning in and outside of the classroom and make sure that you can turn that into how you speak to your skills? Because it's not just a matter of, oh, I want to go to school and get this degree, but what are the skills you're learning while you're getting your degree? I would take Jared as a prime example. As a veteran who came back to get a degree, he was already more advanced than everybody in his class. He went and fought for us and thank you for our service in this country, served, did IT work while he was in there. And again, that's a value added that will, once he gets the degree, will go on. So what are the conversations with a 17, 18-year-old, 19, or our non-traditional students, since we're getting more non-traditional students coming to college nowadays, that talk about what is their unique value proposition? A single mom, she can run circles around all of us on this call right now. You know what I'm saying? So you talk about time management, you talk about, dealing with certain priorities, you talk about all those things that a single mom has to do. The question is, how do I sit down with her and share that with her to show that your skill sets as a single mom articulates that you can run a Fortune 500 company?
I love it, man. That's powerful. That's powerful stuff. I want to real quick, we're not going nowhere, but real quick, as we often do, we get to what we call our moment where we answer questions from Christina. So Christina's going to come on really soon to begin to answer questions. Not all the questions. We're gonna have her bring one question to the forefront. But before we get there, really quick, Michael, our video person, give him a round of applause. He's actually in Portland right now, so he's running my screen. But before we actually get to that, I just want to make you aware of a couple things. First thing, as we said earlier, this event was sponsored by the Circular Change Leadership Conference. It's going November 20th through the 22nd, December 4th through the 6th. It's going to be virtually this year, so we're going to have people from all across the country. Again, it's geared towards culturally and diverse students. It prepares them for career leadership success. And so if you're interested in more information, that information is in the chat box, so you'll be able to get that information. Click on the link. We also have a link if you want to set up a meeting with me or a member of our leadership team. We can give you more information, but I highly encourage you to consider having your students attend this conference this fall. I think it'll be a really great resource for them in their development, not only of academic success, but leadership and career success as well. The second thing I want to make you all aware of is, as many of you know, all of us are speakers. Jessica's a speaker, Jared's a speaker, Dr. Bates, Mary Sale, Ernesto, we're all speakers. And just to make it a little bit more easier, since we've been doing this all for about 3 months now, there is a link that's going to come up. So if you're interested in having any of us become a speaker on your campus, or if there's a topic and you want to know, do any of us talk about it professionally or for students or even coaching, consulting, if you can click on the link and fill out that information, I'll make sure that I get it to everyone and we get back to you in regards to that possibility as well as make sure to follow people on LinkedIn also, and that information will show up in the chat box as well. The third thing is, I have a conference coming up. It's called Future Leaders. It's for first-year students and sophomore students that are getting ready to begin their collegiate experience. This goes on in literally about 2 weeks. The reason why I did it was because I felt like there's a lot of students that are going to miss out on orientation programs due to COVID-19. And after 15 years of speaking all across the country, I thought I would create this program just to give them a couple of nuggets and wisdom that will help them ultimately not only to make the transition into college, but ultimately thrive, succeed, graduate, and position themselves for career leadership success. So that's in there as well. And it's a very awesome opportunity as well. And then the last thing is we're doing a Red Leadership Survey. This is a survey for those that may be part of the millennial or Generation Z. It's real simple. It deals with retention and leadership development. So if you're interested in that as well, that's in the chat room as well. And so we're going to now come back to Christina. She's going to come on right now. And Christina, what I want to ask you really quickly, what is one question that you have been able to decipher through the chat room that you would like to bring up to the panel?
I'm concerned about first-generation students who will be living on campus and away from home for the first time. They're being discouraged from the face-to-face interaction that they would have gotten before the pandemic. How do we keep these students from feeling extra isolated and alienated and homesick?
something I'd like to add on that is first explain why safety is taking place. Because sometimes, just telling somebody, hey, stay away from me for 6 feet, put on a mask, is really a rough conversation to have. Even in speaking to my child and explaining to her, she's like, I want to go do my Girl Scout stuff. I want to go do gymnastics. Why am I being kept in the house right now? My school's saying hybrid. Why don't I get to go, Dad? I'm like, well, what you have to understand is if you explain the health risks, because health risks are real, what are the health risks associated with it? And two, also, there's ways we can still interact and keep a respectful distance. I've linked up with Josh since COVID-19 started. I've seen Tierney in person since COVID-19 started. Neither one of us have contracted the virus, but guess what? We still had interaction. And there's community and living learning centers in our resident life and resident halls. In those communities, you can use some of your TVs or monitors to actually have conversations. And I can be honest with you, after 5 o'clock, when I was on the academic side, I didn't have a lot of conversations with my students when they left my classroom. And now this is a time for us to bridge a gap between student affairs and academic affairs, where now we're true teammates and we're lining up on the starting line together to not just limit interaction student to student in the resident hall, but also have that interaction in the classroom, outside the classroom, via Canvas, via Blackboard. I believe the conversation with the student should not limit the collegiate experience to dormitory or resident life. The collegiate experience starts from the moment you matriculate to the moment you graduate. And the holistic experience of being a student is something you need to capture. My most memorable times were not in the resident halls, y'all. My most memorable times was defending my capstone with my classmates and really hearing somebody say, you really gonna graduate now. My most memorable times was getting through the bursar office and knowing that my balance truly cleared. My most memorable times was in my MBA program when I got to put a hood on with my cap and gown. It never was just associated with the resident halls. Now I got some memories in the resident halls that probably were more trifling than educational. So what we have to say is your whole collegiate experience is not positioned simply around resident life. It's an experience. When you drive through that gate to get to campus, you are becoming a college student and your trajectory is now this much wider just because you're associated and you have a school ID. So that I even make the ID a big experience. I'm giving you this school ID. This is your passport. And from this 4 years later, I expect to see you getting a cap and gown from this registrar's office. Make every moment of the collegiate experience a celebratory moment, and let's not just box it in behind social distancing and resident life. All of it is the collegiate experience.
I want to add to that. I want to speak to the perspective of maybe upper division students, as we focused a lot on freshman students and upper division students themselves, even though they have more experience navigating college life and potentially online and technologies, they're also dealing with motivational issues, momentum issues, major changes in their academic life. And I want to share an example of something, because my son, like Ernesto, I have a senior in college at ASU, and he just faced something during this pandemic. He had a very well-paid full-time internship with the Mayo Clinic. And this was going to be his ticket, his, edge among other people. And obviously that got canceled. And I remember him sitting there devastated that this opportunity that was just amazing was taken away, if you will, by this pandemic. So I sat there and I'm a coach, but I'm also a mama, right? So I'm seeing my son hurting like that. And I said, you know what? Tell me what's going on with you. What are you feeling? I gave him the space to feel what he needed to feel, to be disappointed, to be angry, and to all of that. My next question to him was, how bad do you want it? I want us to remember that our students are stronger than they think, and maybe even stronger than we think sometimes. And I asked him, how bad do you want it? If this thing with Mayo Clinic means that much to you, what are you willing to do for it? And he's like, what do you mean? And I shared that because sometimes our students, especially first-gen students, feel like they're guests on a campus, that they're just lucky they got left in. We need to switch that mindset and let these students know that they have every right to be there and to place demands on the institution and on faculty. Make a long story short, I said to him, how bad do you want it? He said, I want this more than anything else, and it's been snatched from me. I said, then snatch it back. I said, what can you do to change the situation? And the other piece that I want to share here is that students need to understand that when they network and when they work with staff or faculty or external companies, you've got to come from a value add proposition yourself. This is not about a hookup. This is not about the job you can give me. This is about what I bring to the table too. So this sense of confidence and feeling that he had something to bring. So I made him list everything he had to bring to this experience. I said, you're going to write them a letter. You're going to tell them what you're made of. You're going to offer alternate formats. They didn't even know virtual was an option. You're going to tell them, listen, even if you can't pay me, although I need the money, I'm willing to do it virtually or voluntarily. He did all those things. And what ended up happening was he got a virtual internship with the Mayo Clinic in Arizona, not in Rochester where it was originally planned. And he's had an amazing experience. But more importantly than that, is that he now feels like he has power when he comes up against an obstacle that was institutional. And so that's taught him, that win has taught him the confidence to have other wins. Now, I recognize not every student can do an unpaid internship and all of that, but we have got to get to the fight in our students. It's there. And adversity sometimes brings out the greatest things in us. I'm not suggesting that the pandemic is good necessarily, but we've all been blessed during it. We've all learned things about ourselves. We've all reevaluated our lives. And I just want us to really keep in mind that, you know, somebody said earlier, and I know the sentiment, if they can get through this, they can get through anything. Nah, these kids have already gotten through things that are far bigger than a pandemic and a virtual semester. Come on now. So I just had to say that.
Marisol, I'm clapping for you because
Ditto.
Career Services reports to me, and I had that same issue with a ton of students, especially Black and brown students. And we did the exact same thing. I said, look, they need you more than ever right now. And write a letter. So many students, just like your son, got a better opportunity, or they went to a virtual opportunity to do their internship, or what we call project-based learning, where it's like, hey, we're gonna give you a project, work on this for the next 5 weeks. So our students are so resilient. It sometimes takes this actual incident that your son went through for them to realize, I can conquer this, I can do this. Don't let this be the thing that holds me back. He wanted to be at the Mayo Clinic, cool. That same thing happened with a lot of my Black and brown students. I work with 3 personally. All of them ended up getting back to that original company that they went to work with because they did the same exact thing.
That's what's up. That's y'all just made me want to go tell somebody to do something, step up their game, Jason. So back to, I just want to go back to the original question to make sure I'm not missing it in terms of how to help that student feel connected. So typically if you ask a student, why is it, are you getting this degree or you want to further your education, family comes up for the majority. It's not all of us, but the majority of us. So why don't we have a frequent interaction with them? Why don't we set something up where we talk with the families and say, hey, I'm gonna need your help. Every 2 to 3 weeks, I'm gonna need you to remind, you know, your little boy, your little girl, your son, your daughter, whatever, your DD, your D, you know, DS, you know, how they call dear daughter, dear son, why they're doing this, why you love them, why you're happy and proud of them, why you want them to push harder. That boost of inspiration. I'll tell you right now, if I could have gotten just one of those notes, just one from my mom, when I was in college, messing it up, because trust me, I messed it all up, I would have been like, yo, bring it back. My mom just wrote me a note and told me I'm a bad dude. I need to make sure everybody here knows it too. And once you get that, it pushes you. And also it encourages that communication, vice versa, from the student to the family. So that's one. Instead of asking the question, which we always do, what do you want to do when you grow up? Challenge and create cohorts on your campus of what do you want to change when you grow up. Once we start changing that mentality and how we look at it and what we want to do, guess what? Now I can start creating my squad on campus and start connecting one-on-one. Yo, you want to do this? You want to build this? You want to learn this? You want to become this? We can start working with one another and supporting one another. And it's creating that camaraderie that we're looking for, okay? And the last thing that I would say is, what a perfect time to start getting them into what is going to create and be the pillar of their education and their lives. And to help habits, healthy habits. Okay, let's create a habit challenge every month. Okay, we're all gonna study X amount of time. We're all gonna, you know, work out, even if it's Zoom. We're all gonna just have them do things on their own, so they're connecting on their own, but so that they also feel inspired. But allow them to have the ownership of it instead of, okay, everybody, we're gonna do yoga today, and there's 2 people into it. Like, I don't know about that. But when they come up with it, guess what? They're gonna be all in. And then when you have the one student say, I don't know about yoga, but I know this DDP yoga, apparently it's Diamond Dallas Page yoga. He used to be a wrestler, broke his back basically, and he's back from it. Like, yo, I want to do yoga. I'm down to do yoga. Now, all of a sudden, it changes the vibe and the energy. So just wanted to throw those ideas out there.
I just want to chime in real quick.
Oh, sorry. You can go, Jessica.
I just want to chime in real quick on mindset. So I think, a lot of students that I talked to over the summer, they'll start conversations, well, this isn't open anymore, and I can't do this, and I can't do that. But shifting that mindset to what is still open, what is still available, what organizations can I be a part of, what things can I connect with, I think is the key. And having those conversations with them, because we can't just pretend like, oh, the pandemic isn't going on. Like, there's a specific reason why we're virtual. So understanding and explaining to them, yes, we're virtual. I completely understand this, but this is still available. This is still available. This resource is still available. You can still get tutoring. You can still get mentoring. There's still so many things available. And having that mind shift, I think is really going to help them this semester.
That's great. We got about literally 15 minutes left, so I'm gonna start going really quickly. So we're gonna move really quickly because I definitely want to get through these questions. I like what Maricel, as we began, talked about having an authentic heart and really caring about students, and then we begin to talk about relationship building, and then we begin to talk about different ways to build relationships. And then we talked about engagement and motivation, and we talked about a variety of things as far as motivating and engaging your students. But now I think the next level is programming, career programming, leadership development programming, and just virtual programming in general. I know everyone understands we're all pivoting, we're all adjusting. I know for me, where I am now is much more progressed and further than where I was in March. And I'm always learning. I'm still learning because there's so much to learn about virtual programming, about virtual engagement, and just virtual training in general. And so what I want to ask, it's a two-edged sword because many of you are speakers. Many of you have made the transition virtually. What are some effective ways what are some effective things that we can do virtually to ensure that we're positioning our students for career and leadership success? And I know we talk about academic success, and I know that graduation is important, but now I want to really move into this thing of leadership. And Dr. Bates, you deal with career success as well. What are some things we can do virtually to effectively impact people in these areas? And I'm going to start with you, Dr. Bates. We got about literally 15 minutes left, so we want to move real quick and get as much out as we can before we get to the end. Take it away, Doctor.
Sure. So I would tell a lot of people, just reach out to me. I have resources I can share, but the first and foremost, we have developed a actual virtual platform and information to share of how to teach students how to interview in a virtual place. It's going to be different for our students, right? I just wrote an article about fit that it came out about career fit. And a lot of times we're not talking about cultural ad, we're talking about cultural fit. And we know that most of the time when it comes to higher education in corporate America, that's Eurocentric ideation, steeped in whiteness, straightness, all that stuff that you can name pretty much from there. And what we want to talk about in dialogue is moving towards having people understand how fit destroys, blocks Black and brown from getting the great jobs. And so in this virtual platform that we're creating to give out to our students, it's going to talk to them to how to navigate that. Second, along with that is you need to work with your students on getting them, like we did with Marisol's son, internships early on. I don't think you should wait to sophomore, junior, senior year to get an internship. You need to get one freshman year. What COVID has shown us is that virtual internships are a major possibility. There's a company named Parker Dewey, I'll say it again, parkerdewey.com, who offers micro internships. Every student should look at Parker Dewey and try to do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 micro internships to fall into what they love from that perspective as well. And I think the third thing is that students need to understand that it's the skills you learn, not just necessarily the major you're in, but the skills you learn. Employers still tell me they gotta have soft skills. Can they work in teams? Do they have any kind of data analytics? Can they do certain things on their own and work autonomously and come through on a project? I would also add that even though you're getting this great associate's, bachelor's degree, certifications, as my brother Jared would tell you, are still important. Our students need jobs to work while they're trying to get this education. Look in your state for apprenticeships. Apprenticeships are paying $16 to $18 an hour. It would only add to that associate's and bachelor's degree because they're paying you to go to school and at the same time get this apprenticeship certification. And another thing is students should look at getting some kind of certification around Six Sigma, project management, or anything in SQL or TQL. Why? You'll be way more marketable as a student who will graduate with a STEM degree, communications degree, whatever degree you are. But if I see on your resume that you got SPSS, that you got TQL, SQL, guess what? You getting hired with me.
Tierney was just saying, and before I forget, that's the only reason, surgery, about finding something else, get a certification, find something new. It's a website just came out. Literally look up, find something new, and it's alternative, other career paths that you can take. Find something new. So that's something to consider while you're getting your degree. Also, what to consider, I don't say this often, but I do say it, and I'll say it here freely. For future employers, grades aren't going to rank in the top 5 things that they're concerned about. They aren't. However, communication skills, critical thinking skills, ability to work well in diverse teams, tech and social media, those things are going to be of, dire need. Guess what you can work on right now? Virtually, even more so. You can showcase those skills. You can practice them more often. You want to talk about your communication skills? I don't know why, but somehow, while fear of public speaking is one of the biggest fears out there, some of our students get a little bit more courage. We're like, this is a screen, man. I always talk behind this thing. That's how I always talk to my people. Well, good. Give me a speech then. Well, good. Give me a pitch on your business. Let's do an educational Shark Tank. You know what I mean by that? Show me how we can best engage you as a student on my campus, and the winner's going to get pizza on me. I'm willing to take in all that data and that input and that knowledge. Why not? Those are things that we can do to ensure. And also, when you're going to engage your students, and especially virtually, if you're going to, and I just want to throw this in there before I forget, listening and allowing them to talk more is going to be of more benefit than you lecturing and talking to them more. And even learning things. I'm going to share something that I just learned recently, and it was to my liking because I do it, and I don't know if you see my hands. There was research done on TED presentations. Those that were highly successful TED presentations that had the most views had over 400 different hand movements in the process of their presentation. Those that didn't had about 200. Well, I can't even picture myself talking like this because I'd be moving my chair the whole time. And because I'm Latino, I can't control my hands. That's just part of who I am. But teaching this skill set to our students now and allowing them to practice it would be of great benefit. Sorry, Jared. Thank you.
No problem, brother, at all. Just consider this as well as we prepare our students to enter the workforce. Explain to them what a living wage is based off of where they desire to live. A living wage, where I'm from in Natchitoches, Louisiana, my mom raised 4 of us on $19,000 a year. And we didn't go without a lot, but it was some struggling days. $19,000 a year now in Miami, I don't know where I could live. I might use that in tolls just getting to work. In all honesty, you have to kind of just put in perspective living wage. The last thing is, Tierney, it's my favorite to tell you, certs and apprenticeship. I serve as the cyber apprenticeship director for Florida International University. Apprenticeships have a 91.6 retaining rate. That means these big companies bring you in to be an apprentice. They're keeping an eye out of every 10 students that they allow to be apprentices. Apprentices mean you work 2,000 hours in 1 year. That means you're paid a minimum of minimum wage with at least a step every quarter moving up in your wage by level. They also have state programs that are supplementing that wage, providing wraparound services. So those who have families already, who need supplement to the income, for our veterans are out there. Your GI Bill benefits can also be a supplement. I think it's very important that we explore apprenticeships. And it's not the old school trade like you thought, he's going to be a plumber because he's an apprentice. No, I just said I was the cyber apprenticeship director. Do you realize that we had a 0.003 impact to the workforce since COVID-19? So that means we were not affected in the cyber field. In fact, there's a need for us even more, and there's 27,000 vacancies just in the state of Florida. So I encourage you to explore apprenticeships and micro internships, because companies want new talent, and they want talent that they can teach the culture while they're in college. So when they graduate, they know the culture of the company and they're prepared to work and work diligently.
I would add to that I would say to both students and professionals, while employment is a goal and the workplace is a goal, entrepreneurship should also be top of mind continuously. We're here on the call with people who are educators and entrepreneurs, and they're different mindsets, but they're definitely translatable. You've got to have a side hustle. I mean, that used to be a thing you might have done. You have to have a side hustle in an economy that is the way that it is, so that you can pivot, so that you can take care of your basic needs, and then you can make a contribution. And I think that can start as early as being an undergrad student. You know, you take great pictures and you're the photographer for all the frats and sororities. You're excellent at research skills or tutoring. I mean, that's how I got through college. I undercut the tutoring center. I undercut up on 50 cents and you paid cash with me. Whatever it is, students have that entrepreneurial spirit. There's students who are doing consulting right now. My son, who I just gave you an example, is hustling me. Every time I've got to do Zoom or something technology based, he gets a cut of what I'm being paid. So however it is, you have got to have that entrepreneurial spirit. And we know that the growth of businesses among Black and brown communities is increasing manifold, especially small businesses. So encourage, yes, the employee standpoint, but also the entrepreneurial one.
We got about 6 minutes left, and so we're gonna get to our last question. But really quick, what I want to say, and I think it's so important. I was on LinkedIn today. There's a young lady that I know. She's a career coach, and she helps people get jobs. There was a study she posted that 85% of jobs came through digital relationships. I don't know how accurate when I look at the sampling, but it was through digital relationships. And I think one of the greatest keys for our students right now is teaching them how to network digitally and how to build relationships. In essence, we've been on some other master classes, and there was a group from LinkedIn, and they talked about connecting to HR managers and connecting to people in positions on LinkedIn that you can begin to build relationships with. So when Dr. Bates talked about your first year, I would encourage your students the first year, if they have an idea of what they want to do, as Maricel said earlier, once they know what they want to do, get 50 people to connect with on LinkedIn and begin to build those relationships. Because I believe that digital relationship building, that digital branding, and just incorporating digital on all levels is so effective nowadays as it relates to career success. And one thing I often tell people is that virtual is new. There's a lot of people that are still learning how to increase engagement, how to use greater technology. There's a lot of opportunity out there, and that's a great place for students and a great place for people in general to really position themselves for success as well. We literally have about 5 minutes left, so I'm gonna go with this last question. I'm gonna go through everyone one by one, and we have we actually have an intern from Circular Change, Skylar. I'm gonna let her close out as well to give her last point as well. She's actually a student. She's a first generation student, so I think it'd be great to let her close out her closing thoughts on what she wants to share with professionals as well. But this is my last question for everyone today. As y'all know, man, these have been challenging times. For me, especially as a Black man, it's been even intensified with all the things surrounding George Floyd and a variety of other things as well. And so what I want to ask you really quickly, real quick, we have about 4 minutes now. In 1 minute, what is one statement of inspiration that you would like to leave with people today that has helped you to navigate and that you believe will help them? And we're going to start we're going to start with Jared. So Jared, take it away. We'll go to Maricel, Dr. Bates, Ernesto, and Jessica, and then Skylar, you'll close us out. So take it away, Jared.
Adversity is going to happen. Everybody's not going to like you. Today, I watched a funeral of my fraternity brother, John Lewis. And as I sat there and watched, I never would have thought somebody would pass away and still leave me with a charge. He said, be the best you, treat people with dignity and respect. And guess what? He said, go out and vote. What I bring that up because I want you to know, don't take any privilege or any right you have for granted, because the moment you don't use it is the moment it's used against you. Be very clear and concise and understand that someone made a sacrifice before you. So you have to put leadership on your shoulders when it's uncomfortable and still walk as a leader. I can tell you determination is something that you got to find in the midst of struggle. In the last 3 seconds, I'll say, I love gumbo. You know why I love gumbo? Because when you put the right seasoning and the right things in it, it's a mixing pot of a lot of things, but it's a great delicacy. You're going to be a mixing pot of adversity, a mixing pot of struggle, a mixing pot of a trying situation of COVID-19, of discrimination. But guess what? You can be the best gumbo and go over rice and still work it out and get across that graduation stage. Be encouraged and continue to lead.
I just need to say real quick, God didn't make no jump. Everybody on this call, everybody that we come in interacting with is special. And at the end of the day, there is no such thing as imposter syndrome. You belong, like she just said. I say this, and I'll leave with this and on to the next person. Fear of success is worse than failure ever will be. Because we fear success.
Alley-oop. This is one of the things that I would let everybody know. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Get ready to become a student again, all over again. And know that it's okay to fail, because you're going to set up this massive virtual event expecting 300 students and you're going to end up with 8. It's going to happen sometimes. But you know what? Your job is to make sure that you push forward for each and every student. And lastly, I'll leave you with this. And take any level of education you want. But there was a counselor, a coach, a mentor, somebody that comes to mind to you when I tell you who was that person. Remember why they were that person for you and become that person for somebody else. And I wish you all nothing but the best.
2020 can still be the best year of your life. It can still be the best experience that your students have ever had. The key ingredient is you. It's your support. It's your leadership. It's your love. It's those phone calls that we talked about. It's meeting them on Instagram, reaching out to their DMs, asking them those specific questions of what they need in this specific time in history. You've got this. You were created for greatness. I so appreciate all of the love, the support, the extra time, the energy, all the YouTube videos you've looked up to learn how to do Zoom and learn how to get some lighting and everything that you've done. Your students appreciate you. And if they've never said it, I'm saying it on behalf of them. You're amazing, and thank you for all the incredible work you do.
I love it, man. That was awesome, Jessica. That was awesome. Skylar, before I say something, what do you want to say, Skylar? This is on you, the first generation. What do you want to say?
All right. Can you all hear me? Okay, cool. The last thing I want to say is that this has been so inspiring for me to know that all of the panelists and that everyone here is really focused on first generation students. To me, that's incredibly impactful. I'm so thankful to have had this opportunity to meet all of you, to read the chats, and it's been just really rewarding. So I just want to say thank you to everyone in this call.
Awesome. Good job, Skylar. Good job. That's what I'm talking about. Real quick, I just want to, first of all, just want to thank all of our panelists. They were all exceptional. They were incredible. I want to thank Ernesto, Jessica, Jared, Dr. Bates, Maricel. Thank you all so much. You all were incredible. You all were incredible speakers. I'm seeing a lot of positive reports in the chat box, and they said it's been great insight. It's been inspirational, and it would not be that way unless it was because of you all. So I just want to just let you all know that I appreciate you. I appreciate the work that you do. And as I often like to always say, if you're looking for a speaker, you got 5 incredible speakers right here to bring to your campus as well. I also want to remind you about the Circle of Change Leadership Conference. We're doing it in the fall. It's going to be amazing. If you like this, you're going to get that for 6 days. We just have some incredible things planned, and I'm just super excited. I also want to just give a big shout out to Michael. Michael is not seen, but he's in Portland, Oregon. He's been running our video. Actually met him when he was a student. He now has his own business, his own video production business, been with us, I think for about 7 years, but he's been the man. He's been my answer. So if you need someone to help, talk to Michael. He knows this stuff inside out. I want to give you a shout out, Michael. They can't see you, but we want to give you a shout out. Christina, Skylar, working behind the scenes as far as promotion and chats and doing everything that you did. I want to give you all a round of applause. This was our first time doing this, and you all did an exceptional job. So thank you all so much. Thank the leadership team. And then lastly, I want to thank everyone so much for taking the time to be a part of this virtual masterclass. Again, we're going to be doing more. We have another one coming up actually next week, hashtag Blackout Part 2. And then in 3 weeks, we're going to do a virtual masterclass on fraternities and sororities. And so there's so much more that we'll be having. So you'll be getting emails about that as well. But I want to just thank you all so much. And for me, what's my closing thought? There's so many things to talk about. But I think the thing that really hit me is yesterday I had an interview about virtual events, and the interviewer asked me a simple question. He said, "Why do you do what you do?" And there were so many thoughts that went through my mind, but there was one thing that stuck out to me. The reason I do what I do is to ignite a fire in other people so they can go out and make an impact in the world. And so for me, success is not how good I speak. It's not how much money I make. Success for me is that I have ignited a fire in someone else to go out there and spread that fire and make an impact in their community, in their family, their nation, or their world. So if you've been ignited today, my hope is that you'll take this information, you'll impact your students, you'll give them the greatest service, the greatest leadership, the greatest experience they've ever had because they got to meet you. Thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. And until next time, we'll see you soon. Peace.